What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Check out what I've got my hands on today. This is the new NATASHA DENONA I Need a Warm palette, and I cannot wait to review this for you all. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised to see this one. We have two fairly warm tone neutral palettes in a row from NATASHA, but hey, I'm not complaining. I'm gonna be sharing my completely honest thoughts with you all in this review today. I have daylight swatches. We're gonna create two looks. So if you wanna hang out with me today and hear all my thoughts about the new NATASHA DENONA I Need a Warm palette, then keep watching. I know a lot of you are already familiar with this palette, so let's cut to some close-ups of all the shades. Now, depending on what photos you saw online, this palette can look more cool tone, more neutral, warmer, more orange, more peachy. I'm filming everything today, friends, in natural light, so hopefully you can get a good taste of the true tones of this palette. Let me show you all of the swatches in totality on my arm. You will see it does lean warm. Some of the lighter shades are a little bit on like the peachy side, but there's also some more, I guess I would call them like neutral champagne shades that are on the lighter end of the spectrum there. When you move towards the darker end of the spectrum, yes, you do have some warmer tone browns, but you also have some nice neutral deeper browns, specifically in the matte formula, so it's not completely warm. It really, I think, is going to depend on, you know, which shimmer and which mattes you choose. You can go a little bit more in the neutral direction. Let's get a closer look at these swatches, however, and this time I decided to break them up by formula, starting off with the mattes. So the ones that we have here are Mellow, a matte light peachy nude. Then we have Ripe, a matte light medium peach brown. Soft Spot, a matte medium earthy brown. Fervor, a matte medium warm caramel. Vim, a matte deep warm brown. And then Pep, a matte deep warm brown. There is one more matte in this palette, and that is called Flashover, and it is described as a medium clay brown. And this is supposed to be in a new formula from NATASHA DENONA that is described as the Slip Cream Matte. I will say this particular shade, it does feel a little bit like softer, smoother, and silkier to the touch. This one was a lot easier to swatch. I think this is going to be a good shade if you want to go in like a little bit lighter, a little bit more natural. Next up, we have the metallics. At the top there, you have Fancy, a metallic champagne. Hanker, a metallic medium dark golden brown. Then you have two metallic gloss shades. This is also supposed to be a new formula for this palette. The first one is called Snug, a soft bronze. And then we have Homey, which is described as a warm nude. The metallic gloss, it feels a lot like the other metallics that are in the palette. It's just a little bit creamier. There's a little bit more emolliency there, and I do notice that those two shades have a little bit more sparkle to them. It's almost like this formula sits in between the regular metallic, which is a little bit more smoother, not as like wow, pow, not as much glitter, and then the sparkling foils, which have a lot more glitter to them. Speaking of sparkling foils, we have two of those shades in this palette. First here we have Elm, which is a sparkling foiled light bronzy nude. This one, to me, doesn't really look that much like a sparkling foil. I thought it looked more like a metallic. Comment down below, let me know if you agree. And then the second shade here is called Push, a sparkling foiled medium rusty rose gold. And finally, we do have one duochrome and one multichrome in this palette. The first one is the duochrome, and that one is Dynamism. This is described as a duochrome medium brown with green specks. And then the second one here, that is the multichrome. That is called Phenomena, and that is a peach pink green. I have to say, Dynamism to me doesn't really look like a duochrome. It just kind of looks like a metallic with a, you know, kind of dynamic sparkle. It looks like the glitter is what's giving it more of like that duochrome effect. That's just me. Phenomena, on the other hand, does look like a multi-chrome, but I will say, guys, this isn't gonna be like an indie brand multi-chrome, and we've seen these in previous NATASHA DENONA palettes. They are, like, they're a little bit more toned down, more wearable, and honestly, I actually really like a lot of the ones that she does. I'm gonna show you how this one looks on the eye in the demo in just a second, but I just wanna call that out, guys. It's not gonna be, you know, like a crazy, bright, insane Danessa Myricks type of multi-chrome. Just like all the other MIDI palettes, this baby retails for $69. It is made in Italy. It is not talc free. I just like to mention that in case you're interested. And yes, you can remove and rearrange all of the pans. I always get questions about that. And friends, in the description box down below, I am going to be including links as to where you can purchase this. It's available at Sephora, Ulta, Beautylish, a lot of different retailers. But if you purchase this off of the NATASHA DENONA website, I do have a coupon code for 15% off. It's just SOFIASEESQM. I'll put it up here on the screen and in the description box down below. This was not gifted to me. This is not sponsored, but I am a NATASHA DENONA affiliate member, so we get the coupon code and everything. So if you want the 15% off, if you don't want to wait for the Sephora sale or something like that, you can get that deal. So all those details will be linked down below. And by the way, if you are enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really helps me out. And if you are new here, hi, welcome. My name is Sophia, and this is my channel that is all about having fun with luxury beauty. I upload new videos just like this one every single week. I do a lot of luxury beauty reviews, but a lot of other fun favorites videos. We talk about trends in the beauty industry. So if you love luxury beauty, then you're in the right place, my friend. Hit that subscribe button to join our fam. We would love to have you. And with that, friends, let's get into the demos of this beautiful palette. You guys know the drill. For this first look, I'm going to do something that's just a little bit lighter, a little bit softer, a little more daytime, I guess you could say. And then for the second look, I'm going to do something a little bit more dramatic with some of the super sparkly and deeper shades. I think I'm going to go in first to the shade Mellow, because this is the lightest matte in the palette. And I kind of just want to see if this shows up on my skin tone. It definitely does. It's not quite as light as it looks in the pan. So this could be a really nice light sort of transition color to start off any look for me. And you know what? It does look a little bit peachier when it goes onto the eyes. See how it looks right there in the pan? You see that? When it goes on the eyes, it does look rather peachy. I'm kind of surprised. It doesn't even really swatch that way. It did blend beautifully, however. Formula is really nice. Next up, I'm gonna go into this shade, which is called Snug. This is another one of the lighter metallics. And this one has kind of like a, similarly, like a peachy tone to it that I think will go good all over the lid. Definitely has a little bit of sparkle to it. I don't see any fallout on my cheeks, so far, so good. Next, I'm gonna go into Elm, which is another one of the lighter, brighter, softer shades. And I'm gonna apply this to the lower lash line. I like these kinds of shades for the lower lash line because they don't have a lot of glitter. I don't like a lot of glitter on my lower lash line where my skin is very delicate. So this is just kind of like a nice, smooth, soft sort of shade. And actually, let me just show you this on my finger. That would be such a beautiful, you could see I've been swatching them. That would be such a beautiful, bright, one and done type of shade if you didn't want anything like super warm. It's kind of like a very light champagne gold. Next, I'm going in with my Esam V27. This is one of the brushes from my brush collaboration with Esam Cosmetics. And I'm going to use the shade Fancy, which is just a little bit peachier and slightly lighter than Elm, which I just applied to the lower lash line. I'm going to apply this to the inner half of the eye. I thought this one would be good because it has that very kind of bright tone to it. And this brush is great because it's kind of like a teeny, almost like a little finger. So you can kind of boop, just like pop it right there in the inner corner. I'll link my set down below, and I have a coupon code for even all the individual brushes, not just the set. For this look, I really want to try the new Slip Cream Matte formula, which was just this one shade called Flashover. I don't know why she did just one shade, but whatever. It does look like it's going to be a little bit softer and airier, so I'm going to try this out. I have an Esam S33 here. This is great for like a little bit of like soft detail work here on the outer corner. I'm just adding like a little bit more depth, and this shade as well, it really isn't very warm. It's more of like a bark chocolate brown. At least I don't think it's super warm. I also want to point out, friends, that she doesn't have any of the cream to powder mattes in this palette. I'm not really sure why, because I feel like those are the ones that were supposed to be a little bit softer and also good blending shades, but I don't know. Comment down below and let me know if you agree with my hypothesis, but my hypothesis is that maybe those were a little bit harder for people to work with, so maybe she came up with this formula, which I have to be honest, I do think it is a little bit easier to work with because it's not as creamy, but it's just as light and airy. I wonder if maybe this is going to be replacing the cream to powder matte, but don't quote me on that, okay? I'm just saying that's what I think. Maybe she's sort of like testing the waters with this one. Well, it applied very nicely and it was very nice and soft, I must say. I really want to do some blending here around the edges like I do for pretty much every single look, but now that I know that mellow comes across a little bit darker, I don't want to use that for blending, so I'm just going to use a regular translucent powder. I'll put on some mascara and I'll be right back. Okay, so I changed my mind. I have one more shade that I want to add to this to give it a little bit more dazzle. Before I do that, I just want to point out, because I was taking a look at this look a little bit closer in my mirror, these shades are all very soft. I just want to point that out. All the ones that I used, mostly like these right here and then this one in the corner, they're all very soft. No chunky glitter or anything. These are like the smoother metallics. So if this is the kind of look, if this is the style of makeup that you like, you can get this very soft look. I want to show you how you can take it up a notch. I'm going to go into this shade right here, which is called Homey. This one is not very warm, but it is more of like a high shine metallic, more glittery, and I'm using that same Esum V27, just tapping it off. See the difference there? I like a really bright center of the eye. So I was kind of craving this, but I just wanted to show you all the before and after. I was looking at my makeup and I was like, this doesn't really look like a NATASHA Denona look, and it is because of the specific shades that I use. So there's a little bit of versatility here is I guess what I'm saying. Not all of the shades are gonna be like, bam! There you go. I'll be right back. All right, and here is look number one. Comment down below, let me know what you think. Does this look super warm to you, or did this look surprise you a little bit? I really like how it came out. Like, of course, it's a very light, neutral, kind of boring look, but the shimmers are very smooth. The mattes were very blendable. I like that some of these other metallics are a little bit more glittery if I want to take things up a notch. And personally, I do like this kind of slight peachy undertone and just bright champagne shades. I really like that. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts, but I'm happy with how this look came out. Well, hello there. If you can't tell by my different shirt, it is the next day. I filmed look number 2 in the second half of this video yesterday, and for some reason, I don't know what happened to my camera, but it was looking all kinds of weird, so I'm refilming it right now. No big deal. I've already done look number 2, and now I'm even more familiar with these shadows. So for look number 2, I'm gonna be creating just something a little bit more glam. You guys know all the looks that I do on my channel, they're very wearable, they're pretty easy to recreate, but I am gonna be playing around with some of the deeper shades in the palette. We're gonna see if the deeper mattes build up on my eye, and of course I'm going to be playing around with the trio chrome phenomena, so we're going to see how that one looks. I'm going to start off this look with the shade Ripe. It's just this mid-tone brown right here, and a fluffy crease brush from Refer, and I'm just going to use this as my transition shade, just choosing something right off the bat that is a little bit darker than the last look. And my eyelids are very dry this morning, guys. Okay, tried to moisturize them, and despite that, this is going on very nice and smooth. I don't think that this one looks quite as peachy as Mellow did. I'm also going to be applying that same shade Ripe along the lower lash line just to kind of create a little bit of a base for this look. Again, it's going to be a little bit more bold than the last one. Before I go in with the trio chrome, I am going to use the shade Mellow just as a base. I feel like a lot of times if I add a lighter base, it just kind of helps those glittery shades pop a little bit more. And now for the moment that we've been waiting for, I'm going to go into that trio chrome phenomena. This is very nice and creamy. It does have some sparkle to it, but not too much. It's rather smooth, and I'm just using a nice flat brush here. Ooh, yeah. It goes on very smoothly, but like I said before, guys, this is not gonna be like the most intense trio chrome you've ever seen. I feel like it's pretty wearable and it goes nicely, you know, it's very complementary to the other shades that are in the palette. I feel like this could be a look, just the one matte shade and the trio chrome. Like if you really want the trio chrome to be the star, my recommendation would be to do this, just kind of wear it all over the lid, or at the end of your look you can kind of dot this into the center of the eye so that, you know, you get a little bit of something something every time you blink or every time the light hits your eye. Next, I'm going in with the shade Elm. That was that lighter, smoother gold, and I'm gonna apply this to the inner half of the eye. Once again, this is one of the like brighter and smoother metallics, so I really like this one for the inner corner, and I just feel like it brightens up the entire eye. Like, look at this eye compared to this one. If you ever put on any of these maybe deeper shades or like a trio chrome, something like that, and you're like, whoa, I feel like that's too bold, brings a bit of heaviness to the eye, I would definitely recommend going in with a shade like Elm and just kind of blend it into the center of the eye, into that other shade. Next, I'm gonna dip into this shade, which is called Hanker. This is one of the deeper, but still shimmery browns. It is a lot softer than some of the other ones, so I think this should still work well as something for building up some depth, and I'm using the Esum T37. This one is really good for just kind of stamping the color on the outer corner of the eye and really getting like that perfect shape. So I'm just stamping the color and then I'm diffusing it up into the crease like that. Next, I'm going just a little bit deeper. I'm dipping into this matte shade. This one is called Vim. It's like a deep chocolate brown, and I'm gonna try and build this up on the outer corner. Yesterday, I was having a little bit of trouble building up some of these deeper mattes. Like, I just wasn't getting as much pigmentation as I feel like I usually do. So I did grab a denser brush. This is a Rephr number 12, and I'm gonna see if I can build this up a little bit more. It just like didn't end up as smoky as I wanted it to be. That's definitely a lot better. It's just like your standard chocolate brown. I feel like these shades, Vim and Hanker, that I just used to get some of that depth, I don't think that they're super warm. They're a little more neutral to me. I don't know, comment down below, let me know if you agree. So when I use these to build up the depth, I feel like it looks less warm. Just letting you guys know. This shade right here, what is that called? Fervor. That is the super warm matte. Oh, hello, Minnie. She joined us today. I just fed her, so she's probably gonna like sit in the back there and groom herself. I do kind of wish there were some topper shades in this palette, because we do have some more high shine glittery shimmers, but they're not really something that layer well on top of the other shades. So for example, yesterday I tried to layer Push on top of Phenomena, like just to add a little bit of sparkle to the center of the lid, and like it adds a little bit, but I am kind of craving a little bit more of like an ethereal topper. Like in some of the previous palettes, she had those wet effect ones. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like even in the I Need a Nude, I believe we have 1 or 2 in there. This doesn't pop quite as much as Homie did in the last look, because this one is just a lighter and brighter shade. There's more contrast. I just did a little bit of blending and cleanup around the edges there, and then for the final touch, I'm gonna go into the deepest shade in the palette, which is called Pep, a matte brown, and I'm gonna use this essentially as a liner. Let me tap that off. I didn't get any super noticeable glitter fallout, by the way. I was just taking a look in the mirror over here, and it looked pretty good. And I think it's because the shimmers in this palette, even though some of them are rather glittery, they're very creamy. So it does prevent, you know, a ton of glitter particles all over your cheeks. Gonna wing this out a little bit. It's a nice deep brown. And voila, here is look number 2. Comment down below, let me know what you think. I really like how this came out. I think it looks even better than when I did it yesterday, because I was able to build up some of those deeper mattes a little bit more, so it came out a little smokier this time. But I feel like I can see all the shades. I feel like I can see the trio chrome there in the center, and especially, you know, if you see the look in person and I blink and kind of move my head, you can get a little bit of that shiftiness. To me, this doesn't scream super orange or super peach, and that could be because of all of the more neutral mattes that are in the palette. If you were to go in with Fervor, I definitely think it would be a warmer toned look. I feel like this looks good, and I really like the bright golden inner corner. So comment down below, let me know what you think. And with that, I'm gonna show you guys a couple of comparisons with the other Natasha Denona MIDI palettes. Many of you requested that I show a side-by-side of the I Need a Nude palette. This is the one that came out out last year. I know a lot of you guys love this palette and picked it up. They definitely, I mean, in my mind, they are quite different palettes. The I Need a Nude is going to be cool tone. This is going to be more of a celebration of like pinks and mauves. And also in this palette, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's more finishes in here. There's more like toppers to play around with. I like that about this palette, but I will be honest, I do like the I Need a Warm palette color story better because this is just more my vibe. They're different enough that you definitely can have both, but if you don't go for warm tones, like don't, you know, waste your money on I Need a Warm. Next up, we have the Glam palette, which is also pretty different, but I like to show the side by side because it's a very popular palette. I like to reach for this one, more so for glam looks. I know for a lot of people, this is their go-to, this is their everyday, but personally, I prefer this color story for more of like a classic, you know, glam Hollywood smoky eye. Ironically, this palette does not have some of those like super high shine foil glittery finishes that you get from some of the newer palettes, and I think it's just because like this is one of the, you know, earlier midi palettes that she released. But yeah, I like to use this one more for glam looks, and then I prefer the I Need a Warm for everyday sorts of looks because I just get, I don't know, get a little bit more impact from these lighter and brighter shades. If you like more kind of subtle and sophisticated, I would recommend the Glam. Next up, we have the Bronze palette, and this is one of my favorite palettes from Natasha. I mean, talk about warm tones, okay? This is warm tones, and maybe this one is like a little bit, you know, more outdated, maybe a little, you know, couple of years ago when we were having those really orange and reddy warm tones, but I don't know, I still really like this palette. It is definitely the more intense version of the I Need a Warm palette. This one also is a little bit more monochromatic. The one thing that I wish that she did in this palette is added a couple more like lighter shades and a couple more darker shades. There's a lot of medium tone shades in this palette, and so a lot of people when they critique this, they were saying, it's a little too kind of like one note, too monochromatic. I still really like it, and I have a lot more fun using this palette than the I Need a Warm, but I do think that the I Need a Warm palette is better for every day. It's a little bit softer. It is a little bit more versatile, but hey, the Bronze palette, like she is a vibe. I still really like this one. And finally, we have Natasha's most recent palette, which is the Golden palette. I have a full review on this one that I can link down below in case you are interested, and I feel like a lot of us were surprised when she launched I Need a Warm because we already got a few months ago a neutral warm tone palette, but hey, I'm not complaining because I like both of these. I personally think that these are different enough that you can own both. The undertones are very different. The Golden palette is more of like that traditional yellow tone gold, and then you have a couple of like white shades in there, which I really like for contrast. And then the I Need a Warm, as you can see, it's more like of a peachy undertone, and there's also, you know, like I said, some more neutral browns in there. I think that the Golden palette, there's some maybe like funner finishes in this one to play around with. I like that we still have the cream to powder mattes in here. I really enjoy the ones that she included in this palette, but I do think that the I Need a Warm is something that has a little bit more versatility. There's a little bit more of a range of tones. I don't think we needed all of the mattes that were in this palette, so I think that this one I can create more looks with, but I still really like both of them, and for me, these are still what I would consider an everyday palette in my collection. Okay, time for my final thoughts, of which I have many. I'm gonna try and break down what I like, what I don't like so much about this palette. Overall, I do like the palette, and the thing that I like the most about it, to be honest, is the color story. These are my shades, and if you don't reach for warm tones, maybe stay away from this palette. I mean, it's called I Need a Warm, so if you're concerned, oh, is it gonna be too warm? Maybe just save your money, stick to I Need a Nude, the Glam palette, wait for her next release. I'm sure she's gonna be coming out with something for holiday, but personally, I really like these shades. I don't find them to be like super orange. It's not like the Bronze palette or the Metropolis palette, for example. I like that this is more, you know, kind of subtle and everyday. I particularly really like the lighter shades in the palette. These are the kinds of things that I reach for the most. Like if I'm just doing a really quick look for the daytime. If I'm going to work, if I have a Zoom call, if I'm just sitting down to film, you know, not a get ready with me style of video, I often will look for shades like this, and I really like the fact that the mattes in the palette, or the deeper shades, not all of them are super warm, so you don't end up with this like super orangey eye. I feel like that's a little bit dated at this point, so I do like the color story, and actually it reminds me a lot of some of my favorite neutral palettes that I have in my collection that I get a lot of use out of. One of them is this one right here. This is the Viseart Love Letter palette. Ignore the like colorful shades here on the side. If you take a look at all of these, very similar to the I Need a Warm palette. Similarly, I have this other little one, again from Viseart. They just make some really good neutral palettes. This is the Solstice palette, and these shades reminded me a lot of the shades in this palette. So I already know that I get a lot of good use out of these types of colors. So for me, this is one of my favorite Natasha Denona neutral everyday palettes. Is this my favorite Natasha Denona palette? No, it's not, okay? If you've watched my channel before, you will know I like more of her creative color stories, not necessarily more colorful, but just a little bit more inspired. I like the Metropolis palette. I like the Bronze palette, and all of those palettes are warm toned, but they're just a lot more fun to use. I really, like, as a makeup lover, I love reaching for those in my collection, creating a beautiful look. I can see the inspiration of the palette. I just have a lot more fun using them. There's nothing fun about this palette. It's a neutral palette, guys, okay? I didn't particularly have, you know, a fun, creative time creating these looks today. I kind of felt like I was just going through the motions like I would with any other neutral palette, and that's fine. If that's what you're looking for, something every day, something neutral, if these are the shades that you're comfortable with, then go for this palette. That's what it's made for. But personally, I just like, you know, people always ask me, what's your favorite? What do you recommend? And I feel like they're hoping that I say, I need a nude or whatever, but I'm just not gonna say that. Like, I'm gonna be reaching for these more interesting creative palettes because that's what I love from Natasha Denona. And I do have to give Natasha some credit. Even when she comes out with a relatively boring neutral palette like this one, she still tries to bring to the table some beautiful and somewhat interesting finishes. She's still trying to launch new formulas with every palette. She is trying to add value to the palettes, and she's trying to differentiate herself from the higher end luxury offerings like, you know, Chanel and Dior and Tom Ford, or even some of the more mid-priced brands like maybe, you know, like a Patrick Ta, a Makeup by Mario. You are getting something that is a little bit artistic, still wearable, a lot of shades for $69. So the value is definitely there. But at the same time, I do want to mention that the new formulas that she launched in this palette, while I can tell the difference, they're not all that different. They're not all that different once they go onto the eye. They're not that creative. Like I said, she didn't add like the wet look toppers. There's nothing like super different about the finishes in this particular palette. It doesn't completely blow me away. And as I was kind of playing around with some of the older comparison palettes that I showed you a second ago, I did notice that the mattes in those palettes, they are a little bit silkier. They do feel a little bit more pigmented. They swatch a little bit cleaner. And it's not all about the swatches, because not every quality shadow swatches very well, but I did have a little bit more trouble with this palette building up the mattes. It doesn't feel as good as an Isom matte or a Viseart matte. Those are the formulas that I feel like are really blowing me away. This felt like, you know, Natasha Denona quality, but maybe slightly less than what we used to get from her, which I hate to say. Lastly, I wanted to address a lot of the comments that I'm seeing on social media saying that this palette is very repetitive, kind of complaining that we're not getting something a little bit more interesting, maybe a little bit more colorful. And yes, I want to acknowledge this is rather repetitive, okay? We've been getting a lot of neutral palettes from Natasha. Is she turning into Pat McGrath, where it's just a lot of pinks, a lot of neutrals? I really hope not, guys. I do want to acknowledge this is a little bit repetitive. It's different from the other neutral palettes in her collection, but yes, it's a little bit repetitive. In Natasha's defense, however, she keeps launching these because y'all keep buying them, okay? Y'all keep buying them, and I'm not trying to attack any one person that's watching this, okay? Please do not give me a thumbs down, because I know a lot of people that are watching this video, you are a NATASHA DENONA fan. You might be a makeup enthusiast, a makeup lover like me. Just like me, you might have been following NATASHA from the very beginning, you know, excited for all her different launches and reminiscing, you know, when she came out with the Metropolis palette and all the other, you know, more inspirational palettes that she used to have. But unfortunately, friends, those days are gone. Those days are gone. NATASHA DENONA is a bigger brand now. It's a bigger name. More people know about her. It's a little bit more mainstream. She isn't an indie brand. And unfortunately, the reality right now is that the economy isn't super great, and the trend at the moment is neutral palettes. I recently uploaded a video here on my channel talking about the new underconsumption trend. I won't go into the whole trend. I'll link that video down below. It's very interesting. You should give it a watch. But in that video, I was chatting about, you know, what I see selling well as a luxury beauty influencer, and it definitely is higher end neutral palettes. People are really focusing on quality over quantity and on value. People are buying one really good neutral palette. And so she's just really following suit with the trends within the industry. If people were buying more colorful palettes, if her Xenon palette or whatever had sold better, she probably would be coming out with more colorful palettes. I feel like we need to give her credit for launching the Xenon palette and the Yucca palette. It's like, okay, she's still giving us some stuff. Maybe she will come out with something really cool for holiday. Holiday is not usually when brands come out with colorful palettes. But yeah, guys, I see it on my channel all the time. I post about a new palette, and if it is, you know, kind of more colorful, more creative, I do get a lot more comments of people saying like, oh, that looks really cool, but not my colors. And then when I post something like this, at least as of late, most of my subscribers are like, oh, I'm so excited for that. Like, I don't really need it, but it just looks so beautiful. It looks so travel friendly. It looks so everyday. Like, that looks like it's going to be so flattering. This is what is selling right now. And unfortunately as well, all of the brands are just slowly increasing their prices. Like everything else in this economy, the prices have gone up, and the quality is mostly kind of just staying the same, and in some cases going down a little bit, or we're getting just a little bit less product in the pan. I don't know this for sure, but maybe she's not including some of those other finishes from previous palettes in this one because maybe they're more expensive to produce. I don't know that, guys. It's just like a idea. It's just a hypothesis, but maybe that's why we're not seeing those finishes in this palette. So yeah, friends, while I would also like to see a more interesting, inspirational, fantastic, blow me away palette from NATASHA DENONA, the reality is that I am no longer the average NATASHA DENONA customer. She's a little bit more mainstream. We all vote with our wallets, and right now, this is what customers are voting for. But I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments section down below. I still think that this is a really beautiful palette. I just thought I would discuss a little bit more why I think she's launching this, and also, you know, just kind of like the pros and cons, so you can make an informed decision on whether or not this is going to be worth it to you, because it's $69 and that's pretty expensive. And that is it. Thank you for listening to my rather lengthy final thoughts there. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that this review was helpful. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. I want to hear all of your thoughts. Are you impressed by this? Do you like this? Are you drawn to it? Do you like warm tones? Are you done with NATASHA DENONA? Let me know in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you haven't already for more videos just like this. And with that, friends, I hope that you see some beauty in your day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.